Hello everybody, this is a yarn review for Malabrigo's Finito, and I have two different colorways. I have the violin, which is this one here, and I have the viola. So these two colorways are very, very similar. They're part of a series called Quintetto, which is 5 yarns that are dyed in what I would consider to be a gradient. So I have the two darkest colors here, and I made a gauge swatch, and I made the gauge swatch with the viola. And the viola is the second to last darkest, and then violin is the darkest. So for my sample, I knit a pair of socks. I know I knit a pair of socks with my last one, but this is actually a fingering or a sock weight. And I really wanted to try 2 at a time toe up socks and see the difference between the colorways. So I wanted to have 2 different pieces that I could compare side by side. And to the untrained eye, they look the same, and you can't really tell other than the viola, out of which I knit the gauge swatch, has little green specks in it, and I think that the violin, because I'm pretty sure it was like over dyed again, and just a little bit darker, it's either the green specks are like covered with the purple because the purple is a little bit darker in this one. So that's my theory on what the difference is there. So this yarn is 100% superfine merino wool, and it is definitely super fine. It is so dreamy to work with. It's so soft. And it's, like I said, it's a fingering weight. So it is pretty skinny. You need to use small needles. To knit my socks, I used size 0. I always use size 0 with my socks. It's just, when I'm using a fingering weight, obviously. That is just the size that I need to get them to be the fabric density that I like them to be. The suggested needle size is 2 through 4. So I adjusted for my personal gauge. I guess I'm a loose knitter, so I needed to go down some needle sizes. I knit this gauge swatch with a size 3. So it's definitely airier than my socks. The fabric has more space between it, but it's still definitely an acceptable gauge. So I want to measure gauge for y'all. So I'm going to switch the camera angles so I can measure the gauge of this gauge swatch. So here is my gauge swatch, and I am measuring here. Let's see. I'm getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 stitches per inch with a size 3 needle. So that is going to be important because I am going to block this, and I'm also going to do a little bit of felting so we can see how much the gauge changes. So I am going to go ahead and block this yarn and get back to you. Here we have the blocked gauge swatch of Malabrigo Finito. I'm just going to take another measurement to see what we're working with. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5.5 stitches. So we're still getting the same gauge as the unblocked version. It blocked out really nice. The edges are laying down nicely. The next thing I'm going to do is felt it and see how that gauge changes. Okay, so this yarn is not a superwash yarn. It is a hand wash yarn. Of course, I'm going to attempt to felt it, which I'm sure I will have no problem doing so. Like I said, it is recommended that this yarn is a hand wash. So on my sample, I knit socks, and there is some felting going on the bottom of the sock, which is totally, it's to be expected. Socks get the most amount of wear. But there is no pilling. This yarn does not pill. And that is something that I have found to be consistent with most of Malabrigo's yarn. It is very reliable in that it does not pill. That's because they're using quality wool that's not pulling apart and creating pills. It's also due to the fact that this yarn is tightly plied. If you're getting a yarn that is really loose and fluffy, like the twist is not, it's not highly twisted, like it maybe pulls apart easily, or a single, so a non-plied yarn, you're going to see some more pilling with that kind of yarn. And this is not that. There are no pills here. So the drape of this yarn is really beautiful, but it also holds a shape. It has elasticity for sure. These socks have not changed their shape whatsoever. They definitely just like bounce right back. It is very elastic, which wool usually is. So that is great. If you want to make a drapey garment with this yarn, I would recommend increasing your needle size so that fabric is a little more airy. And then knitting at a tight gauge with smaller needles is going to help your fabric to hold the shape. I would definitely use this yarn for larger projects and be confident that it's not going to lose its shape, like a cardigan, shawl, or skirts, things that are pretty heavy that need to be able to hold a shape without like drooping off of your body. So that is something that I would expect from an all wool yarn, and it's reliable. So this yarn comes in 32 different colors, and it's all kettle dyed yarn. If you've ever used Malabrigo before, you will know that you're going to get rich and beautiful colors every time. There is not a single colorway that is available for this yarn that is not cute. Like, they're all beautiful. Malabrigo is always reliably having gorgeous colors. So like I said, these two yarns that I got, the Violin and Viola, they're part of the I think it's like a fade series called Quintetto, and the first one's called Piano, and then there's one called Cello. I don't know the exact lineage of what order they go in, but it starts out with like a mostly white with blue and green speckled yarn, and then goes all the way to the darkest purple, which has a little bit of white, and then this blue, and I think the green is covered up mostly by the purple. This yarn is 200 yards per skein, and it's a 50-gram skein, which is enough to make some socks. It's enough to make a shawl, or not a shawl, a cowl, or a hat. I used, like, these are probably halfway used. I could weigh them. In fact, I might do that later on in the video, but for an estimation, I'm pretty sure I used about half of each of these. So I only used one skein, or the equivalent of one skein, to make my pair of socks. And I wear a size 5 shoe, so there is that. So I did go ahead and weigh them, and the yarn that I used for the gauge swatch, which is actually this one, I had 23 grams left, and the yarn that I did not knit the gauge swatch out of, I had about 24 grams left. So I used almost exactly half of each ball of yarn to make a pair of size 5, could be size 6 socks. So you will need one skein to make a pair of socks at that size. If you have size 13 feet, obviously you're gonna need some more yarn. So this yarn, knitting with it is really a dream. It is, when they say super fine merino, it is definitely super fine. It feels great when you're knitting with it. It's very soft, and it's tightly plied, so there's no splitting of the yarn. And I used metal needles, stainless steel knitting needles, and it wasn't too slippery. So sometimes when I'm knitting with silk or alpaca, I can't use metal needles because it's way too slippery. So then I use bamboo needles, but you can definitely use the stainless steel with this. Even if you were to use the bamboo, I don't think it would be too sticky. I just prefer the stainless steel. They're just faster, I guess. I don't know. The yarn itself has stitch definition. I think that if I were to have a colorway that was a little more subdued, that stitch definition would really show out. So like if you're looking at I mean, you can definitely see it. This is just an iPhone camera, and you can totally see the stitch definition. But because the colors are so vivid and so vibrant, the colors are really stealing the show here. So this yarn can be about stitch definition. What I would recommend for that would be to choose one of the colorways in a semi-solid or a variegated colorway, and not one of the speckled yarns. But if you're looking for that color to pop, the speckles are, I mean, it's really quite lovely, and you can do have a really gorgeous garment that has a simple stitch pattern that's really showy with this color. If you want to do some more complicated designs like lace or cabling, I would recommend getting a simpler color, and there are definitely simpler colors available in this yarn. I am going to go ahead and felt this yarn and get back to you. Hi everybody, this is the result of the felted gauge swatch. I don't even think I could get a stitches per inch on this. It felted so thoroughly, so there is your test for how it's going to felt. It's definitely going to shrink quite a bit if you attempt to felt it, which could be really cool. It looks awesome as far as the colors go, but there's no stitch definition. I mean, okay, very, very little stitch definition. So if you're looking for a yarn to felt, this could be the one. So I would definitely use this yarn again. It runs about $16 per skein. And of course that's going to vary based on your local yarn shop. Available online for $15 and some change. I would use this yarn for a cowl, something that is, you know, it's going to be warm, and it's also going to add like a pop of color, especially if you, like me, wear a plain black wool coat all winter. It would definitely dress up any kind of plain color scheme that you have going on. I would definitely use it in sweaters, and any of the like fade patterns. It would be really cool to experiment with the whole line of quintetto, or any kind of pattern that uses multiple colors that are kind of similar or monochromatic but different. I would use it in my own pattern, the spring birch cardigan, or any of the 1914 patterns that are available on my website, motherofpearl.net. That'll be in the show notes. Those both use a fingering weight in and they're full garments. So yeah, I would definitely buy this yarn again, use this yarn again. It's really reliable, it's soft, and it's durable, and it comes in so many different colors. There are a lot to choose from. So thank you for watching. And again, I used Malabrigo's Finito yarn. And if you found this video helpful, please comment, like, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There are going to be more comprehensive yarn reviews, so if there was something that I didn't cover that you think would be really valuable information, please leave that in the comments, and I will make sure to put that on my notes for the next yarn review that I'm going to be having. And I also have instructional video on my YouTube channel, so thank you for watching.